Okay, I have widened out the screen capture space just for this one tutorial. If you like it, email me. If you hate it, email me. I'd like to find out. Either way, because who knows if it gets well received, that could be a new wider version for all lessons. But I try to keep things concise when we teach code, but this is such a big tutorial with such a big matte painting that we're going to be modifying. I really kind of needed it. I didn't want to be zooming out the entire time. So this piece was done by an artist named Reed Southern, and in the folder with all the examples, we've got more credit for him and links to his websites. But obviously we are going to be taking this still piece and making it animated. And of course, there's a lot of places where we get to work in this, and let me show you really quickly some of the things that are going to be going on here. I kind of got lightened up when I exported it, but that is partially that's actually due to the screen capture too, the compression setting. So you can see we've got some smoke coming up over here. We've got some water coming down on all of these guys, and there's bubbles coming up. There's even some kind of splashes or plumes of mist. There's maybe some sort of mech, or who knows, that could be a very robotic guy just moving along the bottom there. There's elevators going up. I planned on during the lesson actually adding a bit more to this. Obviously there's something in the sky here. The sun's slowly going up. There's some mist going across the water, lightning, I'm sure you saw that. And basically there's just a lot of different things going on, and a lot of different methods that I'm going to teach to do most of those. Some of them are similar, but oddly enough, not a lot of them. So let's close this out and get into our good old folder that you guys have unzipped. Obviously you're already watching the movie. So in the examples folder here, I'm going to try to backsave this even further back than CS3. I'll try to go for Flash 8. In which case I'll change the very little bit of code that's in there. But in your case, just go ahead and open up a new file, because what we're going to do is we're just going to take this JPEG and just dump it in there. So regardless of what version you have, open up a new document, and I'm going to switch over to CS4, where I've already gone and done that, but let me show you two ways of getting a JPEG into one of these FLA files. You can just drag it onto the stage like that. It might take a second to import in, or you can go over here to File. Oops, there we go. And I'm still in the Finder. That's the problem. Go over to File, Import. You can import it to the stage or import it to the library. Probably want to go with Import to Stage. Drop it on there. The file size is 1200 by 675, so you're probably going to want to also modify your stage size to match that, in which case you can just go over here to Edit and see, look, as big as this screen capture is, I'm already running out of space. So I will just kind of have to move this around from time to time. And I was playing around with setting the frame rate to either 30 or 60, but I'm going to work off 30, and then after the fact we can play around with just maybe speeding things up a little bit. I think we kind of run into Flash's kind of, well, at least with all the stuff that we're putting in here, kind of its max playback. So I believe even though I'd set it up to 60, it was probably still realistically giving me a slower frame rate, because we do have a lot going on here. And you'll see even with one of the first things that we're going to do, which is going to be the waterfall here, we add a lot of vectors that are moving at once. But the good news there is even with all the things I added in the end, I didn't see a lot of difference between the playback of the SWF and the QuickTime file. So when you do end up using this for your website, you could go with either one. You could just publish out the Flash file, use the SWF, or you could go, and this is just my work folder from when I was playing around. I exported out a .mov file, and then I also ended up converting that to a Flash movie file, which you could load using the FLV playback component. And I guess we'll have to talk about that now because I just mentioned it. But I think both are pretty fine. And actually probably the Swift is a little bit better. So let's go ahead and begin here. Let's call this layer waterfall. And what I'm going to try to do throughout this is keep putting or grouping things together into folders. So let's call this waterfall folder, and actually we might even want to call this front right waterfall folder. Okay, in case that went by too quick, the new folder button is right there. It might look a little bit different in whatever version you have, but in all versions of Flash, there is a little folder icon to create a new folder in the timeline. And now we want to pay attention, though, to this blank layer here, the one called waterfall. And let's start drawing something on there. So I'm going to go over here and grab a square. I'm going to hold it down, grab the circle tool. I don't need any sort of stroke around it. And this will be fun. We get to just draw circles, okay? Like so. You know what? I think in the interest of screen capture or the size of this movie, might as well just turn off the painting in the background for right now, and I'll just set this the stage color to a gray background. And I'm going to try to intersect some of these. Not all of them, of course. Try to make them random in size. And there is actually a tool for doing something very similar to this, but we'll take a look at that later on. Okay, got something like this that is close enough. I'm just going to duplicate it, and I kind of already I'm speeding through things here. Select everything and go over here to copy. Of course, throughout the rest of this lesson, I will just be hitting the standard copy and paste keys. I usually go with paste in place, which just means that you're going to use your kind of standard paste hotkey for whatever program you usually use, but you hold down the shift key at the same time. And what that does is it just pastes it right on top of the stuff that you copied from. Of course, it's kind of hard to see that happened until you maybe nudge your arrow keys and move things over. If you want to speed up that process, you can always hold down the shift key, and that will nudge whatever you got over about like 8 pixels versus just 1 like that. And I'm going to kind of set this down a little bit. Do the same thing again. I wouldn't worry too much about the repetition here, because at any time you could always just grab one of these and then just maybe shrink it up a little bit, paste it on top of some of the other ones, and that certainly makes it look like we aren't repeating a pattern. And by the way, if you are really a new user to Flash and you don't know how to scale things, I hit Q, which is the hotkey for the free transform tool. You can always just go over here and click on it, and you get these handlebars here. Scale them up and down. Okay, let's keep doing this. All right, you think you've got enough? Or when you think you've got them looking like mine, let's scale things down a little bit further. And then what I'm going to do is kind of square this off a little bit. But let me take a look really fast at one of my visual notes for this tutorial. I do tend to do that from time to time. Let me find it. And here's what I mean by that. I do tend to just make sure that I'm at least replicating what I had successfully done in the past. So let's go ahead and take all this, and what I'll do is copy it over to the side and flip it horizontally. So if you don't know the hotkey for that, you can go over here to transform, flip horizontally, and now I'm going to kind of square this thing off. So just select, and then you can either hit cut or just hit the delete key on the keyboard. We should have something about like that. Maybe make it a little bit taller. Okay. And let's go ahead and convert this to a symbol. So I've got the whole thing selected, and we'll just call this, I don't know, dots. About that. Okay, and this part is kind of important. Some of you might be thinking ahead and see where I'm going with this. We're gonna basically take this same shape and copy it down a few times, and then we'll use that in an animated loop. So we just kind of like those old Flintstones backgrounds where you can see the same building go by a few times. One thing I think though is really important is making sure that you don't do anything like this now, like kind of skew it or rotate it. Or put any sort of blurs or effects on it. We'll end up doing all that good stuff later on. The only thing actually I want to do right now is this probably won't make a big difference, but just gonna offset this kind of Rorschach action that's going on here in the middle. Okay, so let's also scale down a little bit because this is quite big. About to be, let's see, oh, that's nice. Okay, another thing actually that will help just temporarily here is I'm going to take a line, and I did kind of jump into this. What I did is I double clicked into the symbol, so double click inside of there. You can see that at any time, if you want to just, if you notice the timeline has kind of changed up here, I'm probably within the symbol that I'm editing. So let's go ahead and create a new layer up above all those dots that we currently have. I'm going to grab a line and just put it right at the very bottom of all this artwork. And let's do the same thing up top. So just copy it and paste it up there. We're going to end up deleting these in a second, but they do help us to align things. Okay, can't believe I'm already losing my voice for this tutorial. So go ahead and copy the entire symbol now. We're back in our main timeline, and do the old paste in place, and then just nudge it on down this way. And let's go ahead and zoom in. What we want to make sure we're doing is taking that line that we had before and just aligning it right over top the other one. And let's do this at least one more time. And actually, as I was doing this project before, I did think I could probably stand to do one more of these. There's a couple occasions where I wish my kind of waterfall had been a bit longer, so let's go ahead and do it one more time. And again, just want to try to get these as exact as possible. Probably would be a little bit better if I'd made this a really thin line. You can go over here and see the stroking for this. At 2, that's not as thin as if I just set this to hairline. And then let's go back down to this other one as well. Oh, we can really go through here. Yeah. I'll move this one down. Nope, there we go. Okay, that should be about as close as we need them to be. And let's go ahead and select all of them. So you can do a hotkey for select all on the back over here. That's the Apple key, and then just hitting A on the PC. If I look over at my PC keyboard, where did that thing go to? Possibly the trash. I guess it's Control A. It doesn't really matter too much because you can always go over here to edit and whatever that hotkey is in your universe. Select them all, and let's go over here to convert to symbol, and we'll call this waterfall stack. How about that? And by the way, at any time you can hit F8. That's your hotkey for converting something to a symbol. And if you ever need to get back and find something that you've possibly deleted. If it's a symbol, it's going to be in the library like so. So over here, a window, a library, and you can just drag these guys right on out to the stage. All right, so let's now go ahead and put this into another symbol. I know that might seem a little bit redundant, but there's a point for this. So convert it one more time, convert to symbol, and this time let's call it waterfall animated. Okay. Click OK. And I'm going to double click inside of that symbol. And again, you can see right here that I'm within waterfall animated, and we are going to drag this timeline or slide it out a bit to maybe about, we'll try 150 for starters. And I'm going to hit F6. I can also go over here and go to insert keyframe. And even though this is the latest version of Flash where there's a different method for doing your motion tweens, I think in this case it's actually going to make a little bit more sense to go with our kind of classic motion tween method. And we'll discuss that newer method in just a little bit, but for right now, just kind of hang with me. Just trust me that I think this classic tween is going to be better. If you are using Flash CS3 or lower, then you can just kind of ignore what I was just saying and just go over here and go to Create Motion Tween. But for CS4 or higher users, go to Create Classic Tween. And you will see that we've got a nice kind of solid line on the timeline here. It's now tinted blue, and we can go to this last frame and we can make a change to where these symbols are at, or this symbol is at. Okay, and you can see that when you do make a change, it kind of goes up and down like that, just so it's interpolating between those two frames. What I want to do though, again to be kind of exact, is create another layer up on top of this one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this symbol. Okay, I'm going to hit F7 right here. F7 creates a blank keyframe, so I can put down this symbol right here, and it's not going to be showing up before that. Actually, it really doesn't matter too much because we're going to delete this in just a second. Just kind of using it as a placeholder. So I'm going to paste in place that symbol that I copied. Okay, so now I've got two of them right on top of each other. I'm just nudging this one down. And all I'm going to do is make sure that this one on the layer above ends up exactly on top of the symbol below it. Okay, and again, matching up those lines so as best as possible. Okay, and one kind of trick to this too is that if you were to make layer 2 invisible, okay, hopefully you're not seeing any difference. All right, so you can see as I kind of toggle the visibility on and off, no difference. That means things are going really well for me. Now what I'm going to do is just drag this, just drag this down and replace that keyframe. Okay, so the motion tween stayed in place, and now I should have this kind of perfect loop. And let's do this really quick. Let me actually make this or shorten this. So I'm just going to go over here to remove frames. All I did is I slid that that keyframe over to the left and then delete this out. That way when I publish this really quick, we can kind of see it in action here. And if you were to just kind of block off visually the top part of that, the one that's kind of repeating, hopefully in the middle region here, you're seeing this nice kind of infinite loop. And that's why we had to use more than two of these symbols, because when we actually kind of put this over top the waterfall, we'll end up masking out this top part right here. So just focusing in on these bottom three, or I guess like kind of this area right here where we've always got artwork occurring. Okay, so again though, let's move this back out. So this is a bit slower. Let me might even be a little bit quick. What I'll do is I'll end up kind of checking with the version I really like. Yeah, that I thought looked good, just a little bit, but for right now that's fine. Let's double click inside of actually, there we go. Go back to frame 1. Let's double click inside of here. Double click inside of that symbol with all the dots, and then let's just go and delete out those lines. And you can see that just by deleting out the line in one of those symbols with the dots, it makes that change on all of them. Again, that's kind of the beauty of putting things into movie clips, is that if you change one, it changes them all. A lot of new Flash people have problems with that. So if at any time you did want to make a unique instance of a symbol, or a unique copy, I should say, you can go over here to symbol, duplicate symbol, and that's not the same as copy and paste. That will create a brand new one in the library for you to edit. Okay, but we don't need to do that now. It's just something to note for later. So let's go and actually turn our scene on here. Position this, and I think I might make it a little bit smaller. Okay. Now at this point, you could go and rotate this. You could skew it, and let's publish it out again. You're not going to have any problem with the repeatability of this movie clip. Whereas I believe when I first started doing this, when I was playing around, I had to kind of rotate it, and then I was trying to make the that kind of infinite loop, and it just wasn't working out that well. So try to keep everything in a nice little perfect up and down stack. And actually for right now, let's go and just toss this off to the side, and we are going to draw a mask onto a new layer here. So let's create a new layer, and we'll call this waterfall mask. And this is a relatively simple mask. Later on in the lesson, what I'm going to do is grab my Wacom tablet, and we'll do something which I rarely do, which is use that Wacom tablet to kind of quickly draw a mask around this top part. But for right now, I think we can get away with just drawing a square onto the stage here. I don't need that strokes around it, so let's just go ahead and double click on that line and get rid of it. Let's change this to blue though, just because, hey, I think masks look cooler in blue. So using the black arrow here, what I'm going to do is just move that point off to the side. You'll see that if you're not actually grabbing one of these points, the cursor icon changes slightly to that little bent line. And at times you do want to do that, so it's fine. But at other times you definitely want to make sure that you are grabbing this kind of invisible vector point. And so we're just kind of bending this mask to slightly conform to the waterfall in the background. It's not a big deal if you don't get it perfect, and we'll kind of go over that in a little bit. But let's at least zoom in for now and try to get these lines down that are bordering the edge of this building here to be as close as possible. And what I'm going to do is make this this one layer wireframe. So I'm going to click right here. And I've gotten to the point too where I need to start adding some more vector points. So you can hold down Option on the Mac. I guess that's Control on the PC, and drag off a new vector point. I haven't taught a drawing lesson in Flash in so long. I'm starting to question whether or not that is Control. It could be Alt on the PC that creates a new vector point. You will know right away if you are not actually creating a new vector point, because it'll probably just keep trying to bend the line like that if you're not creating a new one. It's actually been a while since I've taught both an animation or a illustration lesson. I guess the last one I taught was an interface design course that had a lot of illustration in it. Okay, so we'll take that right down to the bottom of the stage, and then skip on over to I guess we'll just go to there. And you know, I'm going to put there are a few points in between here. All right. And again, I was saying when I first started this lesson, we're going to do some plumes down here. So we really kind of just need to focus in on this middle area. Okay. If you don't want any chance of kind of selecting this mask later on and altering it, intentionally or not, you might want to select it and just convert it to a movie clip. Again, I hit F8 to do that. Let's call this front right waterfall. Oh, and mask. Let's be sure we add that in there. And this layer actually isn't a mask yet. It's about to be though. So let's go over here and right click. Just go to mask. The layer that is presently underneath that one should automatically get converted to being the layer that's being masked. Okay. So and you also need to unlock these. And I tend to leave this mask layer as wireframe. And then what happened to that stuff? There it is. Okay, so this is what's going to end up getting masked, and scoot a little bit, rotate it some. Okay, let's go ahead and publish and just see how this looks. Kind of silly, huh? But what we want to check for is just that we don't see any sort of indication that it's not that, kind of forever Flintstones background going through. What you might notice is a slight pause at one point, because keep in mind that this frame is identical to this frame right here, okay, which would account for that slight pause. What we'll end up doing is hitting F6 or putting a keyframe right here and then just replacing it with that one. But I want to make sure that we get the timing right, and I think we want to make this a little bit slower. So I'm going to hit, or I'm going to select a bunch of these frames and then just hit F5. And I'm going to publish this out one more time. I think it's still a little bit too quick. And all this is doing when I hit F5 is it's just sending this keyframe a little bit further down on the timeline like that. Alternatively, I could just pull it like that, but I tend to do that F5 method when I have a lot of layers. So I'll just select the whole chunk of all those layers, and that way it pushes everything down that many degrees. Okay, obviously this isn't going to fly like this. We need to add some blurring to it. So let's go over here and add filter, go over here to blur, and let's see. So before I forget, in Flash CS3 and Flash 8, if you're using those, your filters are tabbed up in the properties window, and if they aren't, by default, over here in window, you'd go over here to properties, and it had that little arrow like that, and within that you could find filters. So they are there. Anyway, all right, so let's go and set this to, I'm gonna go for 3 and maybe 15, so it's getting blurred quite a bit more on the Y, and you'll notice a really big difference in the quality if you switch from, like, say, medium to high. For the playback, I think it's going to be best if these are set at low whenever possible. Okay, and there's going to be a few times in this lesson that we do set them to high, but especially for something like this that's going to be seen so often and also repeated, we're going to copy this a couple times, actually more than that, and so having it at low should help there. And then we're also going to go and set the alpha down, and so again, in properties, if you are using one of the older versions, there's a color effect, and you have a bunch of options like none, brightness to advanced alpha. We want the alpha, and we're going to take this all the way down to about maybe 17 or 18, and I know that almost seems like it's invisible, but it is there. And then just kind of seeing that maybe we should try to scale this some. Move it over a bit. Okay, let's see what happens. That actually looks like water going down a waterfall, doesn't it? Okay, and where the illusion is kind of falling apart is where it's going over top these, the kind of kickback, the plumes that are coming upward, and we will solve that later. But let's go ahead and duplicate this. Put it. Let's do another one here, and then let's copy one more. And let's see. Well, let's widen this one out because we at least want to get all this kind of ground covered. publish that real fast. And then let's do one more. And we could, of course, play around with the blurring a little bit on that one. And maybe make the alpha a bit. Kick it up some. Actually, that doesn't look too good. Let's try rotating this a little bit. I seem to remember doing that before. Okay, and we should watch it some just to make sure that. Oh, yep. See, there's a little problem. This one I started too low down, and I guess too scaled down as well. And of course, don't think that you have to do things exactly like I'm doing. Again, I'm just kind of repeating what I thought worked well before. We need to take one of those over a little bit further to the right because we're clearly not seeing anything falling down over there. Oh, you know what? I guess at one point I thought I duplicated one of those or copied it and pasted it, and I really didn't. So let's try fixing that. By the way, if you ever want to scale from one side, you can always move this little white dot, and then you see how that works. Okay, now let's give this a shot. I think it's looping well. It should have by now looped around, and we would have kind of caught some glimpse of something happening. That was a problem. Okay, so that is a good sign, and we can, of course, use that same technique over here in this back waterfall. I think just in the interest in time, and since we are kind of recording at a much higher screen size than previously, there's a few things like that which I might just kind of pause and do elsewhere. But we still got some work to do on this front waterfall, so let's keep going at it. We are going to grab another tool that I rarely use, which is this brush tool here. And again, I don't need a stroke for this. Let's take that off. In fact, it shouldn't draw one anyway. And you can see it's going to do something just kind of scribbly like that. I do have a Wacom tablet again off to the side here, but I think just for this right now, let's not make you Wacom less people feel too out of place. I'm just going to grab a brush that's kind of big like this. Okay, and we'll just go with a mouse for right now, because really the main reason to use a Wacom, well, for what I'm going to be using it for later on, is to make use of some of the pressure sensitivity. But for this, we can just get away with something like that. And as you might have guessed, this does not need to be perfect. Okay. What we're going to be doing with this big old blob here is making it just look like there's a lot more of a kind of brightness to the top of this waterfall. And it's also going to add a little bit more kind of random motion, which you'll see in just a little bit. So let's go ahead and convert it to a symbol, and we'll just call this top waterfall shine. Okay, and once again, well, you know what I was about to say. Once again, let's convert this to a symbol to do the animation. But first, let's go ahead and put the blur on it. And you'll notice that I did that that blur last before because I think it would have been. It's going to be easier to kind of copy this main symbol with all the animation and then set up different blurring based on kind of how far away the waterfall is or whatever. But in this case, the blur is actually going to be one of the things that we are going to animate through over time. So we will do that blur first and then create the movie clip where we animate this. Okay, something like that should be all right. Now we'll go over here to convert to symbol, and we'll call this waterfall gleam, or did I call it shine before? Shine animated. Okay, now double click on it, and let's just go ahead and hit F6. Come out here, hit F6. We'll do these not so evenly apart, so there's obviously less room between these ones and the one out here. The important thing is that this keyframe right here is identical to this one right here, because again, we want to make sure that we're creating nice little perfect loops. And now let's go ahead and just select all across here. Again, right click, we're going to do a classic motion tween. Really not too much reason to do a one of the new fancier tweens in this case. And now let's just go over here and change some of the blurring. And you know, you could actually nudge things around a little bit too if you wanted. With the blurring going so kind of violently up and down on the Y, you probably wouldn't even notice if you changed the actual Y location. But if you just want to play around, go for it. And that's kind of what this tutorial comes down to a lot of the time, is play around with things. Because certainly when I started practicing for this lesson, I didn't really know what I was going to end up doing, and playing around is what led to where we are now. Okay, so again, just making sure that this final one ends up over here, and now let's cut back over this way. Copy, or actually, I'm sorry, don't copy it. Go over here to your alpha. Let's take the alpha down to about 50% or so, and then we're going to go to the blending option, and let's click on add. And you'll notice that makes a huge difference. Okay, before, let's actually switch back to normal real quick. Before, it kind of looks dirty almost, like this is a lake you want to swim in. When we set it to add, ooh, look how pretty that looks. And now let's go ahead and publish it out. And you can see that it's kind of got this almost magical glow to it, and we could do things like this too. Let's go ahead and just expand it a little bit. And that is probably actually on the extreme side. So let's take the alpha down a little bit more. Okay, what's kind of killing it for me right now is these kind of extreme humps. Okay, let's taper these down just a little bit. Certainly we don't want to square them off, but there we go. I think that should probably be okay. All right, copy this, paste it over here. And the cat just got up on my desk. Out. Let's squish this one down a little bit. And one thing we will be taking care of in a little while is making sure this hard line, see kind of that hard line across where we were doing that mask, make sure that doesn't show up too much. And let's offset this one a little bit from the other guy, just in terms of the alpha. And let's maybe even copy this and paste it down here at the bottom for right now. Or maybe midway. Let's see how that looks. Yeah. I got other plans down there. Okay, one problem is that when you publish, and if you are kind of watching both of these at once, you would notice that they are doing the same exact thing. You know, kind of going down and then up, down and up, down and up. And that's really not a good sign. It's kind of a tell that something is off about this. So let's go and double click inside of here, and we're just going to add a little bit of action script. So let's go click on layer 2. We'll just name it action script. Doesn't really do anything for us, just tells us that it's not really an empty layer. It's got some purpose. And I hit F9 right there, but you can go over here. The slow way would be to go to Window and then Actions. And we just want to make sure that we have this first blank frame selected. And if you are using Action Script 3, the code to type in here is going to be var, and we're going to set up a variable. Let's just call it mynum. It's a cute little name. This will be an int for integer, so it's going to be a nice whole number, and I forgot to do a semicolon at the end of that. Okay, then let's write mynum equals math.random, do a opening and closing parentheses right there. That's going to give us a random decimal between 0 and 1, and then we want to multiply that times, let's see, how many frames did I put in here? Let me check. 225, yeah. So we could go, let's just go with 200. And then we're going to write go to and play mynum. So when this movie first launches, it's going to just end up at a random place on this timeline. And if you did kind of want to just see what that number was that ended up getting created, you could go trace mynum, and that would do something like this. Let's try it out. In the output window, which is off to the right. There we go. Because remember, we had 2 of those movie clips. So initially we got 122 and 44. And you can see that when they loop around, when they go back to frame 1 again, they end up jumping forward, okay, because they're getting a new random number and then using that to go to and play, which is not going to give us a nice, happy, perfect loop. So what we want to make sure is that we never go back to frame 1 again. All right, so let's cut across to the very end of this, select that final frame, hit F7, and which F7 gives you a blank keyframe. And then what we're going to do is write go to and play 2. All right, so instead of naturally looping back to frame 1, it's going to go to and play frame 2. And now when we publish it, we'll get the I guess I close the output window. Well, I'm not going to go through and play this whole thing just to prove that it's correct, but that does work right there. And oh, I see. I got rid of the trace statement. That's why we didn't see it. Okay, the code for action script 2, though. Let me go ahead and put that in here. AS2 code it's very similar. You can just write mynum and then equals random, and then throw in there the 200 inside of the parentheses. For some reason, I'm getting the spinning wheel of fun there for a second on the Mac, and it's still happening. Probably means the system's backing up or something like that. Okay, and then again, just go to and play with the mynum inside of there. So a little bit simpler with ActionScript 2. It's usually a little bit simpler. I'm just going to comment out that code. We're going to use this for a lot of different things, but so you'll see that again. In fact, you know what? Let me copy this and then just paste it off to the side for myself. Okay, so come back over this way. Now let's reuse some of this artwork that we've already done. Might as well kind of get it for free in that sense. And I'm going to create another layer within the mask. And if you need a reminder of where that's getting masked, take a look at the bottom there, because we're going to put it right up against that kind of wall or barrier, breaker maybe. And this time around, let's take the blending back to being normal again. It's a little too white, obviously. And let's see. That should be about right. Okay, so let's do 2 of these because, again, they are going to be random. So it shouldn't look like you just have one big, long kind of, row of plumes coming up. And then let's also kind of change the alpha just a little bit. And I guess, random doesn't, of course, mean that they aren't always going to be picking the same random number or one that's close enough. But I think that for the most part will work out okay. And then I was just looking at my finished one. I had this a bit longer, which I thought looked pretty good. Okay, now last little thing. I'm gonna also take one of these other ones and let's put it outside of the mask. And again, this has nothing special going on with the blending. Just taking the alpha down a little bit. And we're going to put this at the top of it. And that should help in terms of making it look less like there's this kind of line going across here. Of course, there is a line going across there because of the mask. But we can also minimize that as well. I think if I adjusted this mask slightly, and let me try to double click on it there. I think if I pulled it up a bit, let's see how that looks. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. You're definitely, hopefully you're seeing a little bit of this breathing action that's going on here where this descends down and then comes back up. And it's a nice little counter force to all this water that's coming down. And, I can't always speak that well for the playback of the screen capture, but, in real time here as I'm seeing it, this it does look pretty darn good. And in a little bit, I'm going to have to save out this file for you guys as kind of a progress file because with this gigantic screen capture and all this all these beautiful colors on here, it is giving us some pretty hefty movies. So this will obviously just have to be part 1. But I think we can squeeze in a little bit more stuff here. One of the things I was playing around with too is making it so that I kind of lightened up this area at the bottom here. And I shall show you what I did to do that. What I'm going to do is double click inside of this mask. And I'm just going to copy this artwork right here. So I'm just going to hit copy, come back up to the top. Oops, you know what? See this line that's going through it? Now, that's actually because I left it selected, and that can cause problems, more problems than you would think. And now what I'm going to do is, let's call this layer lightning or lightening of breaker wall. And I'm just going to paste this down here. I'm going to try to get it right over top of what I had before. And then grab this line. I'm just going to kind of do a little connect the dots action here where I'm going to just fill this in. So all I've done is I've made this line connect from this to this to this so that I can use the paint bucket and just fill in that interior area. So I have a closed off shape. Perfect. And then I can get rid of that. I can get rid of that. And then what we're going to do is take the paint bucket here. We're going to throw a gradient in there, which is, I guess, something that we haven't actually talked about yet. So I'm going to come down and just grab one of these standard gradients that come pre-packaged with the program. You might get something like this at first. That's fine. We are going to modify it. First thing we'll do is, actually, let's just change the color. So I'm going to go over here to the color tab. And let's make it kind of obvious for those of you that aren't used to Flash. Ooh, hopefully Well, you're not really seeing anything there. Oh, let's do this. Let's go grab the gradient transform tool and click in the middle of that, just anywhere in the shape, and you should start to see handles for manipulating where the gradient falls. And sometimes it can fall kind of drastically outside of the shape. And there's one way of dealing with that, which is just what I did there, which is basically find the center point of it and then just kind of realign it. You can also go over here and usually click on or toggle this lock fill button and then paint back inside of it again. And whatever you had that set before, if it didn't work the first time, usually the second time around it's going to fill, you know, from white to black or whatever the color scheme is. And only using the available space that it's got. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and set, well, I might as well keep using the gradient transform tool. So the F key will hotkey back to that, and then I'm just going to rotate this around, and then basically do something like this. So that I can kind of whiten up just from about here to here, okay? And we actually, I mean, I could get rid of that at that point. We'll just leave it there just in case we maybe want to do something with it. But now, go and take the black one. You want to be sure that you set this to white first, and then take the alpha all the way down. Okay, that's going to look best. And then let's go and pull this back off to the far end of it. So then the full white part's going to be off to the very edge. And actually, we don't even need to do full white. Let's go and make it maybe 75, probably even less actually. And this is one of those things too that we could just set it to be anything and then just worry about the alpha once we've made this into a movie clip, which is about what we're going to do. And lightning breaker wall, give that an appropriate name. And let's mask this again and just kind of see where we're at with that. Okay. It's not going to hurt us too much if this kind of overhangs a little bit. Let's lighten it up a little bit. So go back over here to properties. And, oh, you know what? Let's try one thing. What does add do? Kind of looks nice. Let's leave it. So this is what we started with, and then I think you can see that this helps some. Kind of makes it feel like this area is getting some of this, you know, splashback or mist. It just felt a little bit too harsh before, but you know what? Hey, again, this is always up to you guys too, ultimately. Okay, so let's leave that as is. I'm just gonna cut off the very bottom of it, and I could probably get rid of that side of it as well. And you know, on your own, it's probably a good idea to just play around with some of these other settings here, like what does difference do, what does subtract do. Some of them, depending on like if it's the color white, you won't even see any difference, or if it's the color black, you won't see any difference. But let's give this one last publish, and let me check the file size of what we got going so far. Do you think it's looking good? I love this. I love this effect. I'm glad glad I actually got it to work out, because when I started this lesson, I wasn't even sure if it's going to be able to do like realistic water, because it's something that I've tried many times before. And it's even something that I've like emailed back to people and said, you know, I don't even know if I could teach that. All right, so I think that's looking nice. The 200 megabyte range for this part, so it's about time to close it down. One thing I'm going to leave you with is a little project. When I come back, what I'll do is just set up this back waterfall right here, which will obviously just involve a mask, same way we did this first one. I'll just run it up against the side of this thing sticking out here, and I'll also fill in just this bottom mist and stuff like that. So we'll pick it up from there with a little bit more done, but stuff that you guys already know, that gives you the chance to I guess work on your own. And one thing we never did do though was use our waterfall folder. We created it and kind of unfurled it, but we never put anything into that. So let's go ahead and just take everything and dump it right into there. That way we can fold this guy up and then start new layers for the other things that we're going to be working on. So that is how I will leave this file. And again, this is how it's going to be for the end of part 1. And then when we pick things back in part 2, you'll probably have 2 folders like this, one for that second waterfall too. Okay, I'll see you back for part 2.